Good morning, Facebook. Good morning, Blog Talk Radio. Good morning, YouTube. Woo, good morning. I am Tamara Johnson Sheely. Let's see who's going to join us this Friday, August the 10th, 2018. Let's see who's going to join us. It's a great day. It's absolutely beautiful outside. So good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Again, I am Tamara Johnson Sheely. Oh, we're going to have fun this morning. We're going to talk about the candidates and who are they in this 2018 midterm that is headed our way. It's an exciting time politically. We're in a whirlwind of chaos in this Trump administration. But guess what? We are able to turn this country around if we are mobilized and organized and galvanized and we get out and we actually participate in this process. And if we don't, there's strategy behind those that withhold the vote too. So I'm not even mad at you. So I know that conversation gets a little testy for some because they get afraid, but we will continue to have that conversation because what we won't do is guilt people or shame people into voting. We want to encourage them to vote their interest and get out and do what they can if they choose to. So again, I am Tamara Johnson Sheely. Good morning. Let's see who's going to join us. Chime in. Good morning. You know, I always have my trusty co-host. I'll bring them on in just 1 second. So again, who are these candidates in this 2018 midterm? The November midterms are just around the corner. Some candidates are gaining national attention. Some candidates we barely even know. So getting to know candidates down ballot is important, but with limited resources, many of these races aren't going to get a whole lot of attention. So we, on this broadcast this morning, we're going to shed some light on some of these races that are happening across the nation right here in Georgia. So let's bring in, of course, my trusty co-host. We'll bring in Mr. My friend, those of you know him well, David.
Oh, I'm in the show. Hi.
Hey, David. Good morning.
I was sitting there scratching my ear, and then you were all I'm on camera. How you doing? Hi, Tamara.
Good morning, David. Good morning. We have some people chiming in and watching us this beautiful Friday morning after having all this crazy weather. Let's see. Let's bring Mr. John in, our other trusty co-host.
Good morning, Tamara and David. How are you guys doing this
Hi, John.
Friday morning?
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. So this morning we're going to talk about candidates up and down the ballots. Midterms are here. You know what? We got a lot of good people that are trying to get elected, and we need to make sure that we shed some light on some of these races. With limited resources, sometimes it's hard to get the word out. So I'm sure they appreciate having anybody talk about them and encourage people to get to know them and hold them accountable, John. Because if not,
Amen.
What?
Amen. Hold them accountable, because if they are not accountable, we're going to withhold the vote.
There it is.
I got a couple of targets.
There it is.
A couple of November targets.
There it is. So guess what? Don't play. We're going to watch policy. We're going to watch your every move. We're going to hold you accountable, and particularly to people of color and communities of color and the issues that affect them. And we're going to make sure that you're doing the right thing. David, we have to acknowledge that divide, because a lot of times, a lot of this stuff is rooted in what we call racism, race relations, the smoke and mirrors, when it's really the haves and the have-nots. Right, David?
Yep.
David's on quiet this morning. He said, yep. Normally, David is full of something to say.
Well, I think it's an oversimplification, let me put it that way. And,
why do you say that, David?
Because it's the if you say the haves and the have-nots, it ignores or it overlooks the contradictions within the have-nots, and we got a lot of particularly racial and gender inequalities among the have-nots that we got to iron out for ourselves before we're going to have any real power to influence the haves. So that's I've been told I'm a bit long-winded, so I
David,
want to keep my answers sparklingly short.
and right on target.
That's my goal today. All right.
Too funny. John, you want to jump in? We got candidates up and down the ballot. This is the 2018 midterms are near.
And they're very important. This midterm election is crucial for our country and for our state. So we have to know who we're voting for and know who we're not. And it's not always a question of being a Democrat or a Republican, because there are a couple of Democrats there that I am not voting for. I'm withholding the vote from. And a couple of races, one a local 40th district race and the other an attorney general race.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. We're gonna be real candid. So I'm asking you to spread the word this morning. Hit share if you're watching us LIVE right here on Facebook or YouTube. Make sure you share this broadcast on Blog Talk. Make sure you share this broadcast. So let's have the conversations. We're gonna start at the top of the ticket. It's quite an exciting time to watch Stacey Abrams become possibly the first African-American governor in these United States. So that's exciting. Mr. John, Mr. David. Brian Kemp scares the hell out of me.
He is the enemy that we know. Have known, since we've been here. I mean, he's not hiding who he is. Mm-hmm. So we know this decision is clear. Mm-hmm. And hopefully he will serve as a tool to motivate people to come out and vote. I hope that we can focus on him and pump up the turnout, because he's clear. He is the enemy. So we have to raise the decision cost for the Republican Party putting up candidates like that. And by bringing out the vote, we have to teach them a lesson. Punish them. Teach them a lesson.
David, what you think about that race? What you think? Kemp is something to be a little nervous about.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things is that Brian Kemp is the Secretary of State, right?
Oh yeah.
Which means that he determines the voting rolls in Georgia. So we got the fox in charge of the hen house here.
Say it, David. That's it.
Yeah, that's pretty serious. We're going to need a lot of careful watching to be sure that this. I mean, there's already so much voter suppression that's built into the system. As I've said, working people have a lot harder time voting than folks who are in the in the upper middle class. They wait on longer lines. They're challenged more. And people who are renters as opposed to homeowners are not addressed as attentively. So their interests are not represented. So there's a lot of class issues that are there, and those are the people who have the least opportunity to vote. So that's one side of it, and then we could talk about this Democratic turnout fall off that happens in the midterms.
Let's get John back in the camera. John, can you come back in the camera? You're over to the right too far. Thank you, John.
Okay, I'm actually trying to monitor what I'm doing, and there's a lag, so I can get myself back in. Am I back in now?
Yeah, and we don't need you to monitor. We'll don't monitor, John. We need you to feel. Trust me, we have enough people watching.
Thank you. I know all I need is one. Is you.
Yeah. So Dave was talking about the voter suppression and having the fox watching the hen house with Brian Kemp being the acting Secretary of State and running for governor. Only in the state of Georgia do we have such madness.
Yes, there should be someone temporarily appointed to that position during this period. It's a conflict of interest. It's obvious.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so obvious. It's ridiculous, and it brings into the credibility. Makes us question the credibility of the whole process.
Yes, because who trusts him? Like, I don't trust that something won't be tampered with. These machines are already old and outdated. We need
no paper. Is there a paper ballot?
No paper trail. No checks and balances. As a computer science major, I can tell you how important it is to have a checks and balance when you have data, and there is none. So to watch, him be the Secretary of State and our system be in the state that it's in, I'm very concerned about what they might try to do.
Yeah. And I might just mention something that we really ought to be aware of. The Republican Party is a minority party, all right? And it has been since the New Deal. The only way that the Republican Party wins elections is by voter suppression. And that used to be the case with the Dixiecrats. But the Republicans are essentially the reincarnation of the Dixiecrats. So, they must be able to suppress the vote, not just of African Americans, but of working class poor whites, in order to maintain control over the state governments, particularly in the South. So that's part of, I think, one of the things that's going on now. And the fact that Democrats, the fall off of Democrats, particularly since Obama got in, so 2010 and 2014, those midterm elections, the fall off of Democrats was much, much greater than the fall off of Republicans. Midterms always have a lower, voting, but Democrats failed to come out to vote in those midterms at a much, much higher rate than Republicans did, and that's how the Democrats lost the House and lost the Senate and lost most of these state houses, these state legislatures and governorships. Anyway, so that's at least the one case. There's a case that can be made for that. So, I don't know what you think about that, but I have.
Well, the good side of it is that we have a Democrat at the top of the ticket who is bringing energy to the race.
Yes.
It's interesting to see how afraid the Republicans are by the amount of negative ads they're running this early in the campaign. You watch the news in the evening and you see these ridiculous ads. I mean, they're running Christmas ads in August against Stacey Abrams. I don't know if you caught those last night. They were running like crazy.
She's declared war on Christmas.
No? They're running this false ad with her hugging the state capitol with Christmas lights and saying it's Christmas time. Attacks about her taxes. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
It's going to give away.
And then that honestly, when they talk about her financial situation, that honestly is the least of our concerns. As a people, she sounds very normal to me.
Yes, exactly.
Have something that we are dealing with, and guess what? She's normal, and her explanation makes perfect sense. So.
Yeah, I know what cancer bill is.
Not a selling point for Democrats. If they think they're going to make people not vote or, deter somebody to vote financial situation, that has no bearing on it whatsoever.
None whatsoever. I mean, and it's just ridiculous, but it shows to me the fear they feel.
Yeah.
So we have to generate turnout.
Yeah.
We have to pour on the vote in this election.
Yeah.
And don't vote straight Democrat ticket. And
let's start there.
You pointed out to me yesterday, and you made me do my homework on a certain candidate by the name of John Barrow.
Yeah, let's go there. That's next. Well, let's go to John Barrow because I definitely want to go to the congressional races. But yeah, let's go to John Barrow. He ran in the primary against D. Dawkins Hagler, and he makes me a bit nervous as well.
Yeah, he makes me more than nervous after doing my research on him. I mean, he's in the pocket of the NRA.
Yes, he is.
You know, the National Rifle Association, or should I call the National Russian Rifle Association? And he voted, just so you know, as a congressman, he voted with Republicans against the Democratic majority to bring ridiculous censure charges against Eric Holder when he was Attorney General. And of course, the judge threw them out as being ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So we know where he is. Speaking of Dixiecrat,
what race is he running in, John?
He's running for the Attorney General position.
No, John Barrow is running for Secretary of State.
Sorry about that. That's my mistake. Secretary of State.
Yeah, Secretary of State. And that makes me nervous as a Democrat. This is where we have to be mindful that all Democrats ain't Democrats. Yeah. And that's just one example of a race where
he's an old school Dixiecrat.
That's not somebody that we can trust.
Uh-huh. I want to mention something that's in Florida that we ought to be aware of about Democrats not being Democrats. Oh God, what is his name now? I'm blanking out on his name. Maybe it'll come to me. He's run against Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Oh yeah.
I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
He decided that the Democratic primary was so rigged in her favor that he was going to run as an independent. That he didn't think that he could fight the primary with her because of the way that she has, rigged the votes, and so he's running as an independent against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So he's running against she's the embodiment of the Democratic establishment, and she was very, very much instrumental in putting roadblocks in the path of Bernie Sanders' primary race in 2016. That came out in the what do you call it, in those leaked emails. But that's the thing that that none of the people on the talking heads, on MSNBC, they never talk about this. They never talk about this part of what got exposed by those emails. And it was that there was literally a conspiracy by the Democratic establishment, including Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was the chair of the Democratic National Committee, to tip the scales, to put their thumb on the scales in favor of Hillary. Yeah. And I still maintain that Bernie Sanders could have defeated Trump, if he had been the Democratic presidential candidate.
Yeah, I voted for him in the Georgia primary, though I had my reservations about whether he could win. But you're 100% correct. I mean, political parties, as long as I've been following, and I've followed every race closely since 1964, for national races and local races since that time also, the parties are corrupt. They do what they can do to put the candidates they want at the top of the ticket there. And it's a fight. Think back to the 1964 convention, Democratic convention, the 1964 Republican convention. With the whole fight with the seating of delegations on the Democratic side, and then the fight on the Republican side between Rockefeller, Scranton, and Goldwater. I mean, there was so much dirty politics going back. Yeah. And forget about 68. That was a disaster. 68 was
It's dirty politics right now happening inside the Democratic Party. And I can tell you as a candidate, I think the closer you get to the top of the food chain, you get to see things very clearly. And I got to see it very clearly myself. I didn't see much of a difference in the power structure in the Democratic Party as I'm looking over and watching over there in the Republican Party. And I felt like it's the same people. the closer you get to the top, they're all in the same game. They're all in the same boat. And I believe, honestly, they're working together. There's all these things that are happening at the top of the food chain inside of these parties that, if you look at it, Donald Trump will tell you, he said himself, he supported Democrats and Republicans.
Oh, of course, he supported money.
Exactly. So it was, sorry about that. That's me. So it was, as like I said, the closer you get to the top of the food chain, these people are the same people. That's why candidates and voters have to be very intentional about looking at each candidate individually. Just look at the candidate, get to know those candidates, and make a decision based on the candidate, not necessarily on the party. I'm a Democrat at heart, but I'm totally beyond party politics. I don't want to play that game.
Okay. Yeah. If I can interject there too, I mean, it's a twofold. I agree with you 100%. But then on the other side, in an election like this election, and most elections, this comes up. There are overriding issues. Like this election, we have to find a way to put some kind of check on this crazy man. Yes, I said it. This crazy man, this unhinged narcissist. Whether he's a social narcissist or a psychotic narcissist, we don't know. But there's a narcissist in the White House, and the Republicans are not placing any check on him. So we need a Democratic Congress to act as a check. This is crucial. This is an issue of survival for us.
Yeah.
I mean, they're violating the law.
Yeah, let's look at some of the other races, John. Let's look at the we have here in the 6th congressional district, we have Lucy McBath that's running for against Karen Handel. Like I'm excited for her, and I'm hopeful to see Lucy get elected. But that damn Karen, I don't trust her.
Oh, not at all.
Another former Secretary of State.
Say again, David.
She was the Secretary of State.
Yeah, so don't trust her at all. Like I would get past them to make some provisions to make sure that Karen Handel gets back in. But we got to work really hard and support Lucy. She's definitely on the right side of history with all that she is.
And she needs money.
She needs money.
The 6th district is, I've lived in the 6th district, for 32 years, 33 years. And it's very, very conservative, especially the East Cobb part of the district. And I lived there for, 20 years. And we've got to get money into the campaign, because John Ossoff ran last time with all the money in the world, and he came up 2 percentage points short.
And that may not be, and let me jump on that. That may be like, I just want her to get voters. Like I want her to get votes. I'm thinking John had every dime
in the world.
In the world, like you just said, and he still didn't pull it off. So what was it was about those numbers. Where did he lack? And this is where I go back to strategy and being intentional about Black and brown communities. I'm in the 6th congressional district. Yes. When I was a candidate, it was part of my district. And I can just tell you those brown and Black communities were not, they didn't galvanize around John. They didn't get out and support John to the extent that he could have gotten those points that he needed. But it took a different kind of strategy, and a strategy that needed to happen that I don't believe happened to the extent that
it didn't happen early enough, because I was harping on him. I got him. Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you some specific things, like going into the food court at Ding Ho in Chinatown Shopping Center and meeting people on Saturday afternoon. I specifically talked to him and got him to go out to do that and to reach out to these communities. Yes. Go outside of H Mart on Peachtree off of Peachtree Industrial Boulevard and 285 on a Saturday and Sunday and people are out there shopping. Greet people, get to know people. Go up and down Buford Highway and the Hispanic markets. Get out there and meet people. I thought that was really, really crucial.
He needed those Black and brown votes. Yeah. He needed those Black and brown votes.
There really is statistical evidence for this, because I have I can't remember his name right now, but the New York Times reporter who does the election analysis. It's not the guy from 538.
Yeah, Nate Sobey. He's gone. Yeah,
the other guy, and he did a count of the primary, the jungle primary, the open primary, and then the runoff. and he found that there was a fall off in black votes for Ossoff that was enough that if those people had voted, they would have won the election for him. So it really is a very, very striking lesson in running to the left. In other words, running to the interest of working people, as opposed to trying to find those I think mythical moderate Republicans that are the way that both Hillary Clinton and John Ossoff tried to play their election, and or implemented their election strategy. And I think that that's really, really an important lesson for anybody who is running as a Democrat. Where you pick up the votes is to challenge that whole notion that the Democrats have to move to the center. It's just not. It doesn't work. I mean, we've seen it in two very dramatic cases: Hillary and John Ossoff. And Ossoff should have known better. By that time, he should have really had taken into account what happened to Hillary in the presidential election.
Well, I was on the inside during that campaign, and I can tell you what I saw. It was really, really interesting to me. Remember, there was the initial runoff election. Before the runoff, there was an initial election, and I saw won that easily. Primary. And in primary, I was outside on the street all day, sitting in a chair, could barely walk, but I was sitting out there as precinct captain, and I was looking at the demographics of who showed up to vote. And there was a huge difference between the primary and the runoff. I knew John had lost the runoff by 11 a.m. because I was seeing older white men voting in huge numbers. And I'm here in Brookhaven, which he won. Hillary won by 67% in my precinct. But I'm watching the amount of white elderly men voting and how they dressed and how they looked. So I knew what was happening in East Cobb in my old district, off of Johnson Ferry and Lower Roswell. I knew what was going on there. So at 11 o'clock, I called a friend of mine who was doing calling up in New York that I've worked on political campaigns with since 1969. And she was doing calling for us. So I said, Vicky, it doesn't look good. And she's telling me, no, it doesn't look good. Yeah. I knew then we lost.
And that's the part of the district that is part of the 40th Senate district that Tamara was in. And it's the southern half of the 6th congressional. That's the 40th Senate, and that's the part of the district that has the most people who are not wealthy, who are not well off, more renters and more more people who are in whose economic situation is insecure. And in spite of what,
and also more liberal middle class whites live here.
Yeah, right.
And that's a huge difference between the East Cobb, because I know here I can walk out in the street, everybody speaks to me. When I used to live in the East Cobb, in my neighborhood, people would walk by, I would say hello, people would not speak to me. That's the biggest difference I saw from moving from East Cobb to here, was that everybody speaks over here. It's a multi-ethnic community. Everybody speaks, irrespective of class. They just speak. There's not that fear element. There's not that hate element that you see in the northern part of the district, in the western part of the district. And it was really striking to me. In fact, I wrote an article about it for my blog. I wrote a long piece about that experience because it was so interesting to me and how it impacted, I felt, the Ossoff campaign.
Yeah, it's about black and brown. At the end of the day, black and brown people can help can sway an election, and you got to get minority communities involved politically. And that's where we talk about like engaging them. And you can't guilt people, you can't shame people. You got to have a real honest conversation with them and get people to the polls. But I'm hopeful that Lucy McBath will make this happen, and we can have some control over in the 6th congressional district here in the Atlanta area. Another race There's the 7th congressional district. We have Carolyn Bordeaux, who's running against tell me his name, you guys. 7th congressional. I can't think of his name, but whoever he is, let's make sure that we get out and get Carolyn Bordeaux elected in that district.
Which is the 7th? What part of Georgia is it?
The 7th congressional district includes part of what actually includes the Peachtree Corners area where I live. It's Gwinnett County, I believe, for the most part. So let's get out. That's another race we need to make sure we have some representation in Congress.
Gwinnett went pretty strongly for Hillary in 2016, didn't it?
Oh yeah, because you have a large Hispanic and Asian population.
Yeah,
as well
it certainly
Black population. So
is one of the that's shifting demographically.
Oh, definitely.
I think that there's something that in general we might talk about. Listen, I can't find my book Rigged, and I suspect that John has sneaked into my house and taken I was going to show that.
Stereotypes. Oh my God!
I can't hear what he's saying. Anyway, I'm going to do a little bit of a show. This is an interesting book. It's called Brown is the New White. And it's a very interesting book, which I have a lot of disagreements with, but I think that the thesis is very important for us to have a conversation about, which is that Steve Phillips, African-American political scientist who works, I'm not sure all the things that he does, I'm just looking here, but he's got his own company. I think he's, he's a consultant and et cetera. But he's saying that there is a new majority that is coming about demographically, and that the Democrats should stop paying attention to what he calls Reagan Democrats, silent majority. I mean,
silent majority. That's the 1960s. Reagan Democrats is the 80s.
Yeah.
We're living in 2018.
But he uses a number of terms that I thought were kind of interesting because I think they kind of conflate things. But he makes some very good points about. So he says Reagan Democrats, white working class voters or white swing voters. And what he's saying is stop paying attention to them. They're politically on the way out. And the Obama coalition is of progressive whites joining with black and brown voters can win elections. And his point is that the fall off in Democratic votes is what's losing, midterm elections for Democrats, not the fact that white working class voters are being alienated. And there's part of that I firmly agree with, which is that white working class voters are not voting Republican. They're either, and by that I mean people who make less than the median income of the United States, $55,000. I believe that what's happening is that there is a heavy voter turnout of people for Republicans who are folks who are in the $75,000 and up range, and that what's happening is that nobody is addressing the issues of these, what we might call in Georgia, they used to call poor whites, right? And poor whites end up feeling alienated from Black and Latino identity politics, and at the same time alienated from the way that both Democrats and Republicans ignore some of the basic needs of working class people. So, and part of the reason for that, well, I'm getting off starting to get a little long-winded here, I think, but I think there really needs to be a much more of an analysis of who is voting, who created the party, and by extension the takeover the Tea Party took over the Republican Party, and before that the fundamentalist Christians took over the Republican Party, and after the Tea Party it's Trump. How is it that the Republicans get taken over by their right wing and the Democrats don't get taken over by their left wing? I think that's really, really an important issue to address. The question.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think there are very clear reasons for it. I mean, we can go back to 1968, the lesson that Richard Nixon's campaign learned from watching George Wallace first in the Democratic primaries and then in the general election, the Southern strategy.
Yes.
I mean, the Republicans have adapted one version of the Southern strategy. People talk about the Tea Party as being economic, but what I remember most is them spitting on John Lewis, the Obama as monkey signs.
Yeah.
I don't see any difference between that and Donald Trump in 2011 and 2012 start questioning Obama's birthplace.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all this, this racism, blatant racism, which unfortunately appeals to that demographic, the 55,000 and under white working class. And that's that divide and conquer thing that we talked about last week that goes back to 1676. But it's funny that like Nate Silver, 538, you mentioned earlier, his numbers showed that Trump's strongest support was with the upper middle class white voters.
Before we dive too deep into the history,
I'm sorry.
I love about John and David. They'll take us back to the 1600s, the 1700s, the 1800s. I love it.
I didn't go there.
I'm guilty.
But I have a friend actually who did research in 2012 and 2010. When the Tea Party took over the Republican Party. And in fact, he found exactly what you were saying, that it's Nate Cohn, who is the New York Times guy. Nate Silver is the,
538. But Nate Silver used to be with the Times, yeah.
But this guy who I heard he does really serious research. He said the Tea Party is not made up of white working class people.
No.
It's upper middle class.
Thank you.
And so he really confirms what we're seeing, and what that suggests to me is that there's an opening there. There's a possibility for the progressive Democrats to really to capture these folks who are left with no choice in, as you're saying, but identifying with their racial interests as opposed to their class interests.
I really think white working women.
Stop. Wait, y'all. Let's before we get too far into it, let's use the rest of. We only have about 15 minutes left in the top of to the hour, but I want us to at least get through all of the congressional races. I want to at least make sure that we acknowledge these candidates in this broadcast. I don't want to miss anybody. That 7th congressional district race, that is Rob Woodall, that is running against Carolyn Bordeaux. So we want to make sure that we get Carolyn, get her all the support that she needs, and get people out to really help her in this race. Another race that we're watching, District 12, Francis Johnson down, and he used to be with the NAACP, the Georgia NAACP. He used to be the president for the Georgia NAACP chapter. So he is running for Congress down in District 12. We want to make sure we get some support out for him. I just wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to get to the top of these races over in.
Keep on going. Yeah.
Yeah. The Attorney General, the Democrat that's running. I I don't know who this is. This is why I said we have to know these candidates. His name is Charlie Bailey. Does anybody know who he is? So this is where
he's running for Attorney General, right?
Yeah,
Bailey
he's running
is
for
running.
attorney. Yeah, I've never met him. Along the way, I did not meet him, so I'm not quite sure who he is. So I would encourage voters to do your homework. Do your homework. Get to know him. I think he's out there. Do you know him, David?
Yeah. Well, I'm getting mailings from him, and I kind of like what he's saying. He's really being upfront about challenging the ways in which the state law is selectively enforced and hurts poor people more than it keeps the rich folks in line. I think that this is really critically important because we know, like with Jeff Sessions as the Attorney General, of the United States, he is like running a destructive fire through the enforcement of all sorts of enforcement efforts on the part, and this really harks back to Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow, because she talks about how under Reagan, the Attorney General's office shifted from enforcement of white collar crimes to drug related crimes. Hundreds of prosecutors were shifted, and so the whole culture of impunity on Wall Street really stems from that shift in attention and focus. So that's another part of it. If you just let me.
That's excellent. That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
And folks, that's a wonderful, wonderful book. When I studied criminal justice, that was required.
So we actually have a caller before you guys jump too far. And we actually have a caller this morning. I think that is, I put the call-in number up. It's 929-4773-442. 929-4773-442. Let's see if we can bring this caller on and get these comments or questions or concerns. Let's see. Caller, are you there? Good morning. Thank you for calling in. Speak a little loud for us, and you have a question or comment. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for asking. I've been watching the broadcast, and I'm a new viewer, and I've shared your broadcast. I think a lot of the comments are very relevant to what's happening. There's a small delay from watching on video than the phone, so I apologize if I don't know the last comment that was said.
No problem.
I wanted to address one of the gentlemen, so I think y'all are spot on, but I do feel like in Atlanta, what I observed, I live in District 12, the heart of Southwest Atlanta. We are gentrifying rapidly. And one of the gentlemen was talking about the Democratic Party or the Republican Party being very affluent. And I'm wondering if our Democratic Party is also suffering from an intellectual understanding and not really connecting. We have no voter turnout, literally. There's an apathy here. And really, you have to wonder, why come out and vote if people don't seem to understand what I'm going through, what my life is? And it's definitely, I hear you talking about race and class and a divide, but I just don't see it happening in the street. We're talking about descendants of people who are products of war on drugs and how Hillary came out with super predators, and there is a culture disconnect. And people coming, and saying, vote Democrat. So Atlanta is majority Democrat at City Hall. We've got a full culture of corruption, and what has happened for local long-term residents in Southwest Atlanta, really, they're just daily being sold out. I watch victims every day. People's stuff is put out on the street every day. There are no local jobs. They're incentivized large-scale projects by City Hall, by West Atlanta, who's also under a corruption scheme. Tyler Perry Studios is a great example. They have to hire a union. We don't have Georgia Union to hire those workers. Instead, the entire Hamilton Road has been boarded up because it's been bought out. Tyler Perry is flipping houses in LA, and the irony of it is he's who he is based off a caricature of Medea, which is ironically in the heart of Southwest Atlanta, but those people are being put out because Tyler Perry got subsidized because to be put in. And he was here to help the community. There's no oversight. Instead, and this is example after example, Annie Casey, nonprofit, funded out of DC, funded from Invest Atlanta. What were they doing? Flipping houses in Pittsburgh, and no one in Pittsburgh could buy them. So instead, people in Pittsburgh are watching new neighbors come in who start homeowner associations to get them out and post them. Who in Atlanta is helping those people? And then we wonder why there's an apathetic voter turnout, literally less than 20% in a district. So what is the Democrats doing?
Can you guys understand what she's saying? Because
yes, I hear her.
I cannot understand anything that went by, and I didn't want to interrupt, but I really, you'll have to just carry that for me.
John, you heard her. I mean, thank you so much for calling. I think your comment is spot on. I hope you will continue to watch and continue to be very vocal. Please. And continue to I'm gonna make sure that this broadcast gets spread because the recording, you'll be able to hear it, David, and go back and listen. But she is so spot on with what she is saying. Thank you. Tell us your first name, caller. Thank you.
Robbie, thank you.
What's your first name?
Robbie.
Robbie. Thank you, Robbie.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Wow, that was like so spot on. Like she hit it on the head, the nail on the head with everything she said.
No.
Yeah, the
very
real
problem because I didn't hear a word of it.
What she was talking about is
John. Go ahead, John.
Corruption and gentrification in poor neighborhoods, and so how those things come together, and people aren't being helped. You have people coming in and getting monies and buying up properties and taking the profits out. Getting nonprofits coming in supposedly to help the community, but turning that money into housing, and the people that are there are getting pushed out. And she talks specifically about this happening in Southwest Atlanta, and you can see it in the Cascade Road area as you move back in.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, it's happening. It already happened down off of like Boulevard. If you go east from downtown, it's happening, and then go south, that area, you can see it happening there.
Yeah,
I mean, this is a national phenomenon. Talk to Pittsburgh, absolutely. In the Hill District, you see that happening. I mean, I saw it in the 70s where, David, Park Slope. I remember when Park Slope was
and the second part of her comment is like, you wonder why people aren't voting. Like, you see,
yes.
It's obvious why.
Because it doesn't seem to mean anything.
It means nothing. Like, our votes are meaning nothing. Like, I go out, I'll cast my vote, and these politicians and these get in the office and forget who the hell put them there. And look at my community, look at my neighborhood where there are no jobs. Look at our public school systems, they're in ruin. You wonder why people are frustrated, and you wonder why people are saying, to hell with this, I'm not voting. You wonder why.
Right.
We've already had one Atlanta mayor end up in jail, and it's possibly that it may happen to another one.
Yeah. Let me mention something here, because I think this is a real opportunity to talk about what, the real versus imagined interests of European American, folks, because this gentrification, you would think means that these people are getting, the housing values are going up. The more poor people, and particularly people of color, that they could push out, the higher the values of their homes are. And there's, you can hear the wheels turning, so to speak, in people's minds when they say, why should I care about displacing all of these poor folks from a neighborhood that's changing? But if we, and the same is true, if you talk about older white men, that whole thing that that you were
that demographic,
about your this is where I think the demographics are really need to be nuanced or thought about differently, because for people who are retiring these, this wave of baby boomers. Us, yeah, you and me, buddy. Absolutely. If you have a workforce that's coming in that's undertrained, underemployed, has no stability in their working lives, you are going to end up with a base of people who are not able to sustain the Social Security system. And then you're going to have Republicans come in and say, we got to raise the age of Social Security and we got to do all these. No, what you got to do is you got to have a workforce that is highly productive, highly skilled, and adds, tremendous amounts of value. And if you do that, you're going to really have a much more sustainable, long-term sustainability for Social Security and for Medicare as well.
Yeah, so, path to citizenship for undocumented aliens.
Exactly. Where all of those people are able. Not only that, but when you have a universal health insurance system, there's going to be more working class people who are going to be willing to take the risk of opening their own businesses because they know that they're going to be they won't lose their health care, the way you did, John. And if they do that, they're going to hire more people. The more, that's where a lot of the engine of growth. Job growth is.
I mean, look at the Buford Highway corridor. I've been watching that corridor since 1984, and to see how the immigrant communities, the Hispanic and Asian communities, and I say communities because they're multi-ethnic communities, how they have developed that area. There used to be nothing there.
Yeah. So
and
there's
the cities of Doraville and Chambly fought them at the beginning. I mean, I got involved. I had a law office in that area during the 80s and 90s, and they fought them. And even though they were making money off them, we had to battle to even get one Asian police officer because there was a gang problem up and down Buford Highway. He's now a senior officer in Doraville. One man changed the whole thing. But the other issue I just want to touch on is back to what a caller was talking about. We get people in office, and then they're corrupt. And then they go after their own interest. We're seeing that now. We've seen it at the airport with concessions, with people getting friends of businesses. This is a real problem. And this is not an interracial problem. This is an intra-racial problem. Yeah, this is an and it crosses racial lines. Everybody does it.
And one of the things that
hold these people accountable.
One of the things that I think is going on there is that basically both political parties represent what I've been calling what Dean Baker in this book Rig that you stole from me, John. You took that book, so I could show and tell it, but he's looking around. He's never been to my house.
This is my newest one.
Anyway, the one thing I think that's really important, and it's also is that this 9.9%, that the upper 9.9%, just under the 0.1%, is really a critically important element, and that's who both political parties represent. And those folks who you're talking about who are corrupt, what they're really trying to do with their corruption is get into that 9.9% and ensure they're people who are making $120,000, $150,000, $250,000 a year. And as I pointed out, doctors in this country make twice as much as doctors in other wealthy, countries.
Of course.
And their income really it essentially is an income transfer from working people, from the 90% who are below them. There's hundreds of billions of dollars of kind of protectionist money that goes to these doctors and lawyers and dentists and upper strata, corporate middle management, those kind of folks. And there are millions of these folks, and they are the ones who really run the two major parties. They are the ones who finance the two major parties, even if you take into account all of these little contributions, the so-called small donor contributions. Most of those small donor contributions are coming from people in the 9.9%. not from, you know, from people in the, and so they influence, their influence over Democratic primaries, you know, for instance, is really, really crucial. They determine,
definitely,
you know, who's gonna run on the Democratic ticket. And so that is, I think, really important. And for, as far as race is concerned, that group is 97% white. All right. And the other thing about it is that when you extrapolate that, the 97% white in the 9.9%, what you realize is that white working people in the 90% have much more connection to that 9.9% than black and Latino people do. So they have these illusions, you know, that they're going to be upwardly mobile into that group, right? Because they've got a brother-in-law and they've got, you know, their cousin or somebody's going to help them, you know, with an initial down payment on a home. These are the kinds of things that people were in African American and Latino communities. Now, Asians different, you know, East Asians and South Asians generally tend to have much higher, you know, income levels, but because they are so you know, attacked, you know, with this anti-immigrant stuff, they tend to say, well, the heck with this, I'm voting, you know, Democratic. They
no question.
Want to throw me out of the country, right?
And their cultural and their family structure is different. I mean, I was, you know, in part of an Asian East Asian family for 20 years, and they're very oriented in terms of family, in terms of pooling wealth, in terms of running businesses, and developing internally. The downside of it is that politically they tend not to be involved, and it's very, very difficult. So that's one of the things I was working on with the Asif campaign, was helping to get minority folks involved, because it's a difficult issue across the different minorities.
So anyway, I'm going to do a little bit of a show and tell here. This is the Atlantic article.
I love it.
This article, which is the birth of a new aristocracy, the gilded future of the top 10% and the end of opportunity for everyone else. This is in the June issue.
I read that. I read that article.
It really dovetails with
exactly what we're talking about.
What you know, Dean Baker is saying about this 9.9%, and he shows. I mean, Matthew Stewart shows that they've pulled up the ladder, you know, behind them. They're you know, they have really, you know, made it very, very difficult. I think that what Dean Baker does is that he actually he explains the whole mechanism, all the mechanism of how this works. What Stewart is doing is he's showing the results. He's showing how, you know, how these folks send their kids to private schools, and then from private schools they go to the Ivy League and other, you know, universities. From those universities they get jobs, you know, where they're making twice or three times what other college graduates make.
Let me dovetail onto what you're saying on that. And the problem for people of color, and I can tell you this, if you go that route, because I actually started off going that one. I went to a prep school. My mother took a second job as a teacher to put me in a prep high school. Unfortunately, it was with gangsters and the mafia dons kids. But I went to good schools. The problem is I ended up clerking at the largest law firm in the Southeast. The problem is we can't bring in clients because of our we're not socially connected. So we're not going to become a partner at a law firm like King and Spalding or any of the other big firms. If you work for an accounting firm, you may get a position and they work you to death. They'll make you a supervisor. But you can't bring in business because you're not part of that 5%.
And let me jump in, guys. I'm gonna bring us back full circle. I love you guys. I love y'all. Thank you. But let me bring us back. We're literally at the top of the hour, and I really wanted to make sure that we knew, get at least touch on all the statewide candidates. We have a commissioner for agriculture. His name is Fred Swan. running as a Democrat. We have a Commissioner of Insurance, Ms. Janice Laws, running as a Democrat. We have State School Superintendent, Mr. Otha Thornton, Commissioner of Labor, Richard Keatley, Public Service Commissioner. We have Lindy Miller over in District 3. District 5, we have Dawn A. Randolph. So we have Democrats up and down the ballot that, as voters, please research these candidates, get to know who they are. It's imperative that you vote your interests. Vote what's going to move this country forward. We're tired of the smoke and mirrors. We're not going to allow candidates to just give us a song and dance and say what they're going to do and not actually do it, because we are going to withhold the vote and we're coming for those seats. This is a two-part campaign. Right now, everybody's on the level playing field, pretty much. Kinda. And we're trying to give everybody an opportunity. You know, these midterms are very important, that, you know, people get out and actually vote, but those that are withholding the vote, we're trying to help them to, you know, see this thing from their strategic interest, do this, make sure they get out and vote their interest if nothing else. John Armwood, you do an opinion piece on YouTube called
Armwood Opinion.
Armwood
and
Opinion.
Also I have a blog, armwoodopinion.com.
Yeah.
I do both of them there. And I do at least once a week discussion on issues regarding politics, culture, race, and technology, because I'm a geek. And I really look at a lot of this as being driven by technology.
Yeah, awesome. Follow John on YouTube. Follow him right here on Facebook. Please share this broadcast. We do this every Friday, 11 a.m.
Tamara,
Sometimes we're a little bit late. David, you know I'm coming to you. So David and I do this Acknowledge the Divide. And David, you know you have a series, a workshop series that's coming up. It's called White and Woke. How do I wake up other white people? If you are white and you are woke and many around you don't seem to get it, racism, and race relations are the root of this country's divide, and you're the only one talking about it. So we're encouraging us, our white constituents and people that are out there to have these hard conversations with their family and their friends. And David has proven methods that can be used to help you to get beyond those barriers and have those conversations and help people to see how working in solidarity is imperative. So David's dates for his workshop series is online. So no matter where you are, you're able to participate from the comfort of your own home. It starts Thursday, September 13th. It's 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 9:30. So it's every other Thursday for 8 weeks. So it's Thursday, September 13th, Thursday, September 27th, Thursday, October 11th, Thursday, October 25th. Like I say, we are online, and this will be a very interactive experience where we have these very candid conversations. We get down to the specifics of what is happening with you and the other white people around you, and we have the conversation and we work through it together. And David gives you tried and true methods to go back and actually try and bring back some feedback in ways we could do things a little different.
Let me just say that what we're trying to do is get people to share their stories, incidents in their lives in which they have had racial encounters that have left them confused or angry or ashamed, and then change the ending of the stories. Figure out ways to think about alternative ways of approaching a situation like the one that they found themselves in that troubled them in the past, and that I think is really important. You know, is crucial for understanding how we are going to change not just attitudes but also actions. You know,
behavior,
and that's really what we're going to focus on, plus the historical background. One thing I want to say is that there have been some really important races for the elected prosecutor positions around the country. The Philadelphia, district attorney is a radical progressive and he just won that race 6 months ago. Now we have the district attorney of St. Louis County, where Ferguson, Missouri is a black law professor. I think his name is David Bell. And he just won. And those prosecutor positions are really, really crucial. We don't know how much prosecutorial discretion determines who gets charged and who is let slide. And for David Bell, he defeated a long-term incumbent who was the one who let the police officer off in the Michael Brown shooting. So he decided that. It wasn't a jury. The prosecutor decided that. So there is enormous power in the hands of prosecutors. And I don't even know, pardon my ignorance about this, but are prosecutors elected in Georgia?
Well, yes, they are. The attorney generals are elected. District attorneys are elected on the county level. The state, you have the attorney general, but the district attorneys are elected.
Yeah,
they're nonpartisan.
Those are very. I mean, if we are looking for one of the major sources of mass incarceration in this country, it's prosecutorial discretion, and we really need to pay attention to those races. Are they nonpartisan?
Yeah, they're nonpartisan, just like judgeships.
So you really need to be that would be a major public service for somebody.
That is so important.
Yeah, so it would be a major public service for the Democrats in particular to assign somebody to get what do they call them? One of those cards, one of those voter card, voter checkoff, cards. And get that out to folks, because this is where your life can turn to hell.
Yeah, and we're at the top of the hour, so I know these conversations get better and better every week. So we're asking that you share the broadcast. I am Tamara Johnson Shealy. My website is up right on the screen, tamarashealy.com. Share this broadcast. We will do this again next week, Friday. We're going to continue these conversations with and talking about the candidates. There's so many of them that I want to make sure that we get a chance to at least give a shout out and, to those that that we know, and those that we don't know, reach out to us, get to know us. If you want to participate on this broadcast and have a conversation with David and John, feel free, reach out. We would love to have some candidates as a guest. So if you're a candidate, or if you know a candidate that may be interested in having a conversation with us, please do, because these issues are ones that we want to see addressed. And trust me, when you get elected, if you don't do it, we're going to come for you. So you might as well come to us first.
Or we're going to withhold the vote.
Or we're going to withhold that vote. We're coming. We're not playing. This is something that we're going to continue to do. I want to thank my trusty co-hosts, Mr. David Slavin, Mr. John Arnwood. I totally enjoy doing this broadcast with these gentlemen. They are phenomenal. I have learned so much from them. And I want to make a little small announcement. I'm going to put it out. I haven't said anything yet, but yours truly has been accepted to Emory Law School. I Juris Masters this coming fall, so I am super excited. So for those of you who thought I wasn't qualified, Emory is more than qualified. More than qualified. So I'm going to put out some formalities and put out an announcement. But I just want to thank the two of them for being, being a support system for me as I go through this political journey, because I can't do it without you, David. I can't do it without you, John. And I love you both dearly. And I want to thank you guys for watching us this week on this broadcast. And we will be back next Friday, same time, same channel, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to continue the conversations with the candidates. And if you're a candidate or you are an elected official, we are formally inviting you to be a part of this broadcast. Come talk to us, because trust me, if you don't, and you don't do right, we're going to come for you. So let's get on the right.
Be there, be square, right?
Oh, be square.
That's right. Thank you, guys. This was a great broadcast. Thank you, John.
Okay, Tamara.
All right.